Good afternoon and welcome to TTMOE at 3:30 to this week. I'm glad that you are here. Thank you for your comments already, and thank you, Sunshine, for jumping right in. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Hey, Miss Lucy. Hey, Sunshine. Glad you all are here, and those of you who are coming in, please say hello. I am on location, as you can tell, and so I'm at the Issachar 3 conference in Houston for a couple of days, and so I just want to jump in here pretty quickly because, when I'm at conferences, I don't stay on really long. But I just wanted to share this with you. It's something that's really been coming up a lot this weekend in a lot of different shapes and forms. And so the topic today kind of comes from what Ephesians 2:8 sets up for us. Ephesians 2:8 says, I'm going to let you see it so we can make sure you know what it says. It says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and it is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God." And it goes on to say, "Lest any should boast." And so what I wanted to say to us is that grace is something we must choose because grace has been given. What we have received, it is our responsibility to reciprocate that. Not only grace, we can't give God back God's grace, but what we can do is give grace to others. There's nothing we have not been given. And so because grace has pleaded our case, we can sing Amazing Grace all day long, but we find ourselves in situations where we will withhold grace from those who, grace isn't something you can deserve. So you can't say, well, they didn't deserve my grace. You didn't deserve the grace you've been given either. So grace is something we have received. So therefore, grace is something that we give. So we have a decision to make every single day that we can treat people, we can match their energy, we can grumble, we can gossip, we can gripe about everything going on around us, or we can choose grace. Now, I don't mean that we ought to choose cheap grace. I don't mean that we ought to use misguided, misplaced grace, because in things that have to do with justice, grace is provided, but grace has its limits. Because you cannot just dismiss that which is injustice, because that's dismissing sin. And dismissing sin, forgiving sin, yes. Dismissing sin, no. Grace forgives. Dismissal is for us to act as if something is not happening when it is. And we're living in a time, we're dealing with some things where we're going to have to face some things and people head on. And yes, exercise and exhibit forgiveness when it's appropriate and when we need to do it. But we cannot be dismissive of that which is unjust. So grace is, when I talk about grace, I'm really talking about those things and people who do us wrong. We've got issues with family members or people who are in our churches, people who are on the street, people in the grocery store, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about systemic issues. I'm talking about personal, interpersonal, one-on-one things. We've got to learn what it means, really, to choose grace. I say that because often we find ourselves in situations where people have, as we say, well, you've proven yourself time and time again, and we choose to not give them grace. But it goes back to forgiveness, and we're probably going to be talking about forgiveness a lot in the next few weeks. It goes back to forgiveness. Jesus says forgive 7 times 70. And all that really means is there's never a time when forgiveness is not in order. Even when it goes against the grain, even when it makes us angry to feel like we have to do it, grace is in order. So I pray that you will understand that grace is not something we have an option about. We must choose grace. We must choose to forgive because we choose for our souls to be at peace. So when you choose grace as opposed to matching energy, then your soul gets to remain at peace and you get to please the Lord. How about that? It's an opportunity. Not I have to forgive because God said forgive. No, I get to forgive. Because I know that when I forgive, I'm pleasing God. And when God is pleased, God opens windows. God opens doors. God gives us everything we need and that which we don't even have the capacity to understand. Grace is always in order. So we must choose grace. It's a good way to just put it right out there, Miss Lucy. Thank you so much. Grace is always in order. So choose grace. Don't be jaded. Don't decide that people don't deserve your grace. Or I've given grace before and look at what they did. Okay. God gives us grace every day and look at what we do. So grace is in order. And it is always amazing. It's amazing because Christ gave it to us. But it's amazing when we can tap into the Christ in us and exhibit grace to those who are in need of it, or those who are struggling with life and don't even know that they need grace. But grace is what they receive from you, and grace then becomes contagious. And we've got to live like that we know that grace will be contagious. So I exhibit grace to you. And then grace gets exhibited to me somewhere else. And then we see that the cycle happens in our lives around and around everything that we find ourselves dealing with. So just as Christ gave us the ultimate amount of grace through God that said that I'm going to forgive them through what Christ did for us, we every day have to practice and choose grace. I hope that helps somebody today. If you know someone who needs to exhibit more grace, who struggles with grace, who likes to hold a grudge, send them this and let them marinate, let them meditate on how much grace has pleaded their case. And then hopefully, like all of us, they will choose grace. May God bless you, heaven smile on you. Choose grace and be encouraged. We'll talk soon. Don't forget to share.